We were punks and we were geeks.
Hey guys, this is Chuck with 15 Minutes of Bedlam, and I am here today with one of my oldest hardcore friends. Well, he's not old, he looks like a kid, but we've known each other a long time. His name's Dan Houston. He's from the band Masters of War out of Seattle, Washington, a great new straight edge hardcore band that just dropped the record last week. Dan, thank you for being here today.
Thanks for inviting me, Chuck. It's a big honor.
Well, man, we really appreciate you coming on the show. It means a lot to us, and this is our first fancy podcast in a real studio. Shout out Arcadia Studios, shout out DC, and shout out Heather for helping set this thing up. So let's go ahead and get started. So we go really far back. We actually met when you were a high school kid, and then we went to college together. But let's go all the way back to the beginning. So where were you born? Where did you grow up? And what were some of your earliest memories from childhood?
I grew up I was born in Kennewick, Washington, which is in eastern Washington state, a long way away from South Carolina. My earliest childhood memories are I have two older sisters, and my parents, my dad worked at Hanford, which is a nuclear power plant. I don't know, life was pretty idyllic up until about like 1980. And then there was a recession, and when Reagan got elected, my dad kind of panicked that he thought that his job might be eliminated. So he started looking for jobs anywhere, and his company Bechtel had a contract overseas in Saudi Arabia. And moving over there when I was 10 really kind of changed my life. So that was a huge experience for me.
Okay, so here you are. You're 10 years old. You're in Washington State. It's 1980, and you're moving to Saudi Arabia. What was the first thing you saw when you landed in Saudi Arabia that caught your attention?
It was completely black and flat, and when you got off of the airplane, just the heat. It's not like anything I've ever experienced. It's like blowing hot wind. And just seeing guys wearing long, traditional Saudi dress and women in traditional Saudi dress. This is like 1983 or whatever. So like it was very traditional. And and I'm coming down the stairs of the plane in shorts, and you know what I mean? Like it was a culture shock. I'll just say that. And we got there late, so it was very, very, very dark.
So you commented in some emails that we had recently that you were really inspired by your time in school there, especially with a couple of your teachers. You also said that you were playing baseball. So how does one do school baseball competitively in Saudi Arabia? And tell me about your music education at the school.
Well, there isn't a lot to do there. So like because it's so hot, and unfortunately in the wintertime it gets down to a mild like maybe 65, 70. So you can actually do activities like soccer. And a lot of the expatriates, which means people who aren't native Saudis, kind of, recreate things like home. So we had Little League Baseball. We played other international schools. Not in These are kind of like Little League Baseball teams, like neighborhood teams, not really like a school team. We, travel around to different cities and play. It was pretty great. One of the few things to look forward to when it's really hot outside, you know what I mean? Like is so, and I was lucky enough in fifth grade. I had a teacher named Mrs. Hudson, and her husband, Mr. Hudson, was the PE teacher, and he had a big influence on me. But she started recruiting us for concert band like in fifth grade. She knew we had, junior high, seventh grade, you got to be ready. What are you going to play? So like that was always in the back of my mind. I originally wanted to be a drummer, I thought, but then they told me you had to take some sort of beat test, and I got nervous. So I just went with the clarinet. But she the whole thing of being in the band and learning pieces and polishing, that really kind of helped me. And as I move forward about how you take things seriously, and you're not here to mess around. We're here we got a performance coming in. Everybody's got to be on their game. So she really, and I switched over from clarinet to bass clarinet, which meant I didn't have to do the chair fighting because there was only one of me. But she really pushed me to get me to like practice because I have a really good ear. So I would a lot of times just like freelance. She she taught me that, that doesn't cut it. You know what I mean? Like,
Especially on bass clarinet. I keep thinking of
yeah,
the Grinch soundtrack. Girl.
yeah, yeah,
I
totally.
always love bass clarinet. It's so funny that you mentioned that you were thinking about playing the drums, but you ended up with the clarinet. And I was really wanting to play the clarinet, and I ended up with the drums because
Oh, really?
we had a Boy Scout thing that day, and I had to go pick up trash on the highway. And so when we went to sign up for instruments, my dad and I got there at the middle school at like 3 o'clock, and all the drums were, all the clarinets were taken. So they said, well, we've got flute and percussion. And at the time, I had really, really Bugs Bunny buck teeth, and they said, you're not going to be able to play the flute with your teeth like that, so you want to play the drums, and that's how I ended up with the drums. But I love the
Thank
clarinet, I
God.
really do. All right, so cool. So you guys were over in Saudi Arabia, what, about 4 years?
Yeah, from fifth grade to eighth grade, and actually, that's where I learned how to play guitar. Strangely enough.
Oh, let's talk about that. Now, you had mentioned in our prior correspondence that you had a guitar teacher who was really, really in the traditional guitar rock and roll style of the 50s and early 60s. Kind of who were some of the influences that you could hear in the playing? And you said he had a big Gretsch jazz box, right?
He had a Gibson ES
Yeah,
335,
okay,
and he
Gibson, yeah.
yeah, and he was a big kind of like Dwayne Eddy,
Oh,
um,
yeah.
like Scotty Moore, like like traditional like rockabilly players, But he was, I remember he was really into Dire Straits too. That was
Oh,
his like
man,
that was his kind of, I mean, that
the
was his kind of
best.
thing at that time. So yeah, he really, I think he'd been in garage bands in the States, and he was somehow ended up in Northern Africa teaching English and played in some cover bands. And, I mean, he played guitar and wanted to play. And so he, kind of ended up recruiting kids from the middle school that he taught to kind of, fill out his band. So, I mean, that went on for a couple of years. He started that maybe 2 years before I joined. But I remember thinking about that every day when I saw them play. I was like, I'm going to be in that
Oh,
one day.
man, that's the best, the
Yeah.
best. And how
His
about the
name
other
was Dan.
players? Did the other kids have chops? The older kids that you heard jamming with him, or they were already on their way?
Yeah, kind of. I remember he did a lot of it, and he would play. They played Wipeout, and I'm kind of precocious, so I noticed that he was playing the. They were just playing A, D,
Right. Yeah.
A, E, or whatever, and he was
Those are my
playing that. And
parts.
and so I remember going to him and going like, "I'm going to be in that band, and I'm going to play the na 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 na." And he was like, "All right, kid, whatever." But he did let me, teach me how to play lead specifically, so that was great.
Oh, man, that is the best, and it's just so amazing that the impact that guy had still impacts who you are today as an artist and as a person. So that's so
Yeah,
cool. So
his
when
name
you
is
came, oh, what's his name?
His name is Dave Fugly, and he's still around. He's a great guy. So,
Shout out Dave Fugly. We love you, Dave. Good job, man. Keep rocking. So you guys came back to the States, and that begins the chapter in Augusta. Now, was your dad working over across the river at the big nuclear plant? Where was he working?
yeah, well, we came back to California,
Oh,
and
California first. That's right. Yeah.
he didn't want to stay there. So the whole time we were there, he was angling to find another job, um, and to get us out of California because that was where the company where he worked for, that was their home base. So he was, and because he'd worked in Hanford, he knew that Savannah River they might get that contract. So he had that in the back of his mind that he wanted us to go there. But in the
Okay.
meantime, I had massive culture shock when I came back to the U.S. Luckily, I had some friends that I met early on that play guitar. Um, and they're two brothers, Bill and Greg Schneider, and one of them played bass, and he was kind of recruited into this punk band from our school. And just by osmosis, I kind of got absorbed into their band, like being the roadie and hanging out with them. And that's where I went to Gilman for the first time, and it's all because of those guys. And so when we moved, I thought I was like Mr. Punk Rock expert because I'd I've been going to shows for what 6, 7 months. So I thought I knew everything when we moved.
But in punk rock, that's like 5 years. 6 months is like 5 years. And you were at Gilman Street, bro. That's like legend. What was the name of the band that the kids had?
It started out as the Skin Flutes, and then they turned into Sawhorse, which was I don't know, and then Hurst, the guitar player, went on to be in Fuel, and then Bill's the road manager for Green Day now, or he is and
Wow.
isn't, and then he's in Pinhead Gunpowder too. So yeah, we knew all those people. I mean, I didn't. I was like the tag along little brother. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I was in the room with them, but I mean, I knew who the Green Day guys were before they were, a big deal. So
Oh man. And they still have the sound. They still have the heart
yep.
too. I mean, you can hear it. They're legit, and I'm so happy for them and all their success. First time I heard them was on a 7 inch. Was a recording of a 7 inch that my buddy JP Foster, RIP, was playing in his truck, and I was just blown away because it sounded like the Sex Pistols and the Beatles had a baby. I was like, this is so cool. I mean, I just absolutely love it, and it was fast. And a lot of my friends were skateboarders. Uh, Me, not so much. I tried. I was more of a skateboard faller offer, but uh, but they were all good skateboarders, and they were really into Green Day. And yeah, it was just such a different sound. It was, I could tell something was going to happen with them, that it was going to take off. So I'm so glad it did. And so you guys ended up in South Carolina. So Culture Shock, were you in San Francisco? What part of California were you in?
Walnut Creek, the East Bay. So I was
Right. Okay.
I mean, I had just learned to drive, and I against my parents' wishes, I remember I drove my car to Gilman one night.
Oh man.
It didn't get broken into or vandalized, but that wasn't a very good part of Berkeley back then. So I'm a very lucky boy. I hope my son doesn't ever do anything like
Oh,
that.
there you go. There you go. Yeah, we all learn from the journey, that's for sure. And so you moved to South Carolina, and you're in Augusta. Well, you moved to Augusta, Georgia, right on the line there. Beautiful Augusta, right on the river. And I remember back in the day, Augusta really, really had a great scene. We used to go down there and play at this place called the Ranch. It was a skate park that
Yep.
Mark G ran, and Mark's out now with another war-oriented band. Let's see, War God, and
Yep.
yeah, so it's so great to be back in touch with Mark. But talk a little bit about putting something together musically in Augusta, and then we'll kind of move into when you came to college.
Well, I was just put a band together with people from my high school, and then kind of kids I met downtown, which is really weird. You go down to 9th Street downtown, and there'd just be all these like wouldn't not necessarily be punk rockers, but just these weird kids from the art school, which was Davidson, that would all hang around down there. And we started a band called Moral Deceit. My friend who went to my high school, Win, who was 15 years old, decided he was going to be our manager, which I didn't know anything about bands having managers or anything. But he's the one that called you to set a show up, and
Okay. Yeah.
that was like we had like 5 songs, I think, when we called you. Like we were, so it was like we booked this show in March. It was like March 20th, and
Hmm.
Bellum hours coming, and we got to be ready. You know what I mean? It was like, and we booked it at this place called Augusta, in Augusta College. It's like I don't know what that's called now, Augusta University or something. But anyway, it was like their auditorium, and how they rented it out to a bunch of like 15-year-olds is like beyond me. But Wynn talked him into it. We rented a PA, and like we did, you know what I mean? It was crazy. Like, and
It
then you
was a
guys
killer
came.
show. It was so
Yeah.
fun. And the PA was awesome. The house was awesome. I mean, it was a good night all the way around. You guys did it right. You sure
So
did.
that I kind of went from being a spectator to be somebody who was like in on what was being, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like actually doing stuff. And that kind of like, that stuck with me basically the rest of my life. If you want something to happen, you kind of have to do it. And then we booked Judge to come over the summer. And that
Oh
was like a
man.
big, big deal for us. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, so like,
Yes.
and that was a great show. That was one of the best experiences of my life. That show, just like we'd seen these people on record covers, and then they're there in
Hmm.
person, and it was crazy. So But
those guys are true blue too. I mean, they mean what they say, and
yeah,
play from the
totally.
heart, and they're solid guys for sure.